Hey garden friends, Landon Gilfillan with Pepper and Pine Garden Design, and today I'm working on my medicinal herb and eventually cottage garden. Something that I've always dreamed of having, that I sort of dabbled with in the past, but now have the landscape or the ability to really make this cottage garden what I've always wanted. Today is the hard labor, just getting out all these weeds, getting out the plants that I don't want, and just preparing the ground in this place that will end up being a place of beauty and repose, and obviously a resourceful place to grab my herbs for some tea or a tincture or whatever I decide to use these herbs for. I definitely want to get more into the nitty-gritty, as I like to say, with how I plan to use these specific herbs. Right here, for the time being, I think I'll be placing my mullein, my comfrey, some anise hyssop, echinacea, amaranth, and I already have a lot of my culinary herbs, which can also be medicinal herbs, out in my main garden beds. I may eventually add some more up here. I'm also going to be putting lavender in, and I feel like I'm forgetting one, but it'll come to me. But I kind of want to separate and have a different space for these medicinal herbs, some more flowers and things like that. Not that I don't want them in my garden, but I'm really trying to utilize that space for what I'm growing for food specifically. So we'll see how this evolves over the season. But for right now, I'm going to get busy digging out these plants, get my sweat on, even though it is actually a really nice, cool day. But I definitely look forward to talking about more how we're already using herbs in our house and how I plan to beef up our herbal medicine cabinet and even our teas that we like to drink. So stay tuned. Basically, all I'm doing here is just removing these. Well, I did take out a bush. I'm not a fan of bushes, boxwoods and such. I just would rather use that space for flowers and things that are pretty or have a purpose. I don't particularly love boxwoods and evergreen bushes and things like that. But just gonna get all this stuff up, loosen up the surface. Herbs don't need a ton of nitrogen and nutrients like your vegetable garden does. So I'm not really worried about coming in here and fertilizing or adding compost. I might add a little bit, but it's not really necessary. That's why herbs are so nice, because they're just not a fussy plant. They don't generally need a lot of water. In fact, a lot of times, look at this cat. What the heck? Get off. You're a weirdie. Go on. Lord have mercy, these cats. Most of the time people end up over-watering their herbs, especially lavender. Lavenders can be really hard to grow just because it doesn't actually require very much treatment and attention. It likes arid weather, not warm to hot, not a lot of water. It generally gets overwatered in most locations. And that really is the same for most herbs. It's kind of like a set it and forget it kind of thing. So you do kind of want to think about maybe where you're placing your herbs. If they're in a low spot that gets a lot of water, you might want to consider replacing it, or mounding up the dirt to where it's above the ground and where it will drain really well. That's probably a better option for your herbs, to be in a place that drains really well instead of sitting in water. Their roots just aren't going to do well, and they won't do well overall. But Mediterranean herbs are kind of my go-to. I lived in Italy for about 3 years, and I lived with some Italian landlords that really just taught me the very basics of Italian cooking. And it's so simple. I still have, her name was Titi. I still have her voice in my head telling me every time we would cook together, she'd say, aglio, olio, pepe, sale, tomato, pomodoro, sorry. Which is basically garlic, oil, salt, pepper, and tomato. And sometimes she would throw in onion, cipolla. But, it was so basic. It was so basic. And just watching her cook, that's basically how I cook now. I just add things in per how I, think that I want them to taste. I don't necessarily follow the recipe. So I just say that to say that cooking, and especially cooking with herbs, it doesn't have to be fussy at all. It actually can be pretty simple. And if you just start having the, courage to play around with flavors, you might be surprised what you come up with. So, I mean, if I'm going to tell you the basic herbs to have in your garden, parsley, basil, sage, rosemary, thyme, oregano is a big one. Chives are great to throw in salads and obviously on potatoes and so many other things. Ranch dressing. Dill is a huge one. It's really easy. Again, really easy to grow. Beautiful when it flowers. Prolific. And just an amazing, amazing flavor. So you just really can't go wrong with herbs. Just pick a few and start growing them in your garden or in a pot in your house or a pot on your porch. If you don't think you have a lot of space, you don't need a lot of space to grow herbs. If you're growing a garden, just throw your herbs anywhere in next to your plants. They generally don't get too big, so you don't have to worry about them taking over your garden space unless they're in the mint family. So any kind of mint, spearmint, peppermint, chocolate mint, any kind of mint, lemon balm, anise hyssop, what am I forgetting? Anything in the mint family. Now those can become invasive, and if you plant them, they will take over your garden space. The only way to kind of get around that is if you're really good at cutting them up, making sure you're splitting your plants, which that's kind of tedious, or planting them in the shade. All my mint and lemon balm is in the shade garden over here. So it's the shade kind of keeps it under control. It kind of keeps it manageable. And, the great thing is my kids, my son especially, have learned to just go out and grab some herbs and bring them inside and make some tea with the fresh herbs. I love that. I love that they just feel like they can just walk out to the garden and get herbs. I've got a vertical green stock planter on my back porch, and I purposely put it there so that my kids and myself could just walk out and get lettuce greens at any point to make a salad. Or I've got my cilantro. That's the one other one I forgot. Cilantro. You need cilantro, although it bolts the minute it gets, too warm. But I love that they can just go out there and grab salad for dinner or herbs for tea. We've been doing some foraging of wild edible plants. So they've been having a lot of fun foraging purple dead nettle to make for tea. Now the smell of it, I can't stand the smell of it, but the taste in tea is actually pretty good, and my kids really enjoy that. So I don't know, if you're going to start anywhere, start with herbs and salad greens. They're just the easiest thing to grow. Growing herbs from seed can be a little finicky, so maybe just buy a plant start. But once you get them in in your planter or in the ground, they're really pretty. They're really not very fussy unless you just overwater them. And it's just so fun to go outside and cut some fresh herbs, come inside and put them in some boiling water and have a lovely cup of tea. I just love it. Now where I'm beefing up my herbal garden is, like I spoke about in my last video, is really focusing a lot more on medicinal herbs. Now I've grown medicinal herbs in the past more for beauty and aesthetics, things like coneflower, which is echinacea, yarrow. I love yarrow. Even hollyhocks can be used for herbal medicine in place of marshmallow. What are some other ones that I've always enjoyed growing? Lavender, obviously. Mullein is actually a really beautiful plant. It kind of like sprung up randomly in my last garden. I didn't know what it was, and I finally looked it up, and I had just a wild mullein plant growing in my yard, but it's actually really pretty with its yellow flowers. And I just realized I forgot some really big ones like chamomile. Chamomile is such a lovely plant, so easy to grow. I've got it out there in my garden with my cabbage plants. Calendula is a great one. It's, again, another really pretty flower, but it's great for tea. It's great for making salves for, I believe it's like bruises and any sort of pain that calendula is really good for. Again, I'd like to state, I'm not a doctor and I'm not prescribing anything here. I'm just telling you how we've used these herbs in the past. I am a board certified nutritionist, so I do know a lot about the body and the physiological things that happen in your body and how herbs can mediate things in your body. But I am not prescribing anything, nor am I suggesting anything for treatment. I just want to throw that out there. Gotta do it. But it's just so fun to grow these beautiful little plants in your garden and then find really, simple ways to use them in your herbal medicine cabinet. And that's one thing that has been really kind of eye-opening to me in the last year, is learning that herbs, just for even medicinal purposes, don't have to be fussy. You can pick a handful of herbs like the ones that I've mentioned: chamomile, calendula, lavender, echinacea, mullein if you can get it, comfrey if you can get it. I mean, basically sage, oregano, thyme, rosemary, all these things that you really could probably get no matter where you live, can be used, mediate a number of different symptoms and illnesses. And so just pick a few to start off with, learn about those specific herbs and what they do, find a couple ways to use them, whether it's a strong tea or as a tincture or as a syrup, like if you're elderberries. And just don't feel like you have to have all these exotic, crazy herbs. Start with like 3 to 5, and you might be really surprised how you can have a robust medicine cabinet, herbal medicine cabinet, using just those few herbs. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. Peppermint is another one that I keep forgetting to mention. Peppermint, which is so easy to grow, so easy to get a hold of, is great for so many different things. Headache, if you're feeling nervous or anxious, peppermint's a great way just to calm your nerves because it's a nervine. And that also goes for lemon balm. Again, in the same family, has sort of the same effect. So whether you prefer lemon balm or peppermint, choose your poison and have a nice cup of tea. I will tell you one thing about using herbs in tea is most herbal tea bags are not going to tell you to steep them long enough. Most herbs actually need to be steeped 10 to 15 minutes with the lid on to really get that medicinal effect. And you have to be drinking it on a regular basis. So having 1 cup of tea a couple days a week really isn't going to do anything. You have to learn to enjoy that cup of tea multiple times during the day and make sure you're steeping it long enough. But of course, that's getting into the nitty-gritty of using herbs that I suggest going to Homesteading Family with Josh and Carolyn, and they have a lot of great resources there for learning how to use those herbs, medicinally and with a protocol. Okay, y'all, final haul here. Finally found the root. About to get it out of here. But I got the majority of the plant out, and now this space is pretty much open and ready for planting. Yep. Well, there it is. Everything I dug out. I'd say that's a pretty good pile. Oh my goodness. All that's going to the compost. And I'm going to fill this bed a little bit with some composted cow manure. Not necessarily for the nutrients, but just because I need some more fill in here. And I've got 2 buckets over there, so I'm gonna fill this up. And then I'm gonna put my plants in the ground. You make me look, you got it all inside of you. Feel it to be true. And when you dance, I'm in the groove. So now it's time for the fun part, planting, yay. So I am really happy about this bed. Doesn't it not look just amazing from what it looked like about an hour and a half ago? I'm really excited about that. So, and really there's a lot of space to plant some medicinal herbs here. Even if I make this only the temporary bed, it may end up being part of the permanent medicinal herb bed, just because it's such a beautiful little space. And now that it's cleared out, I can really see what I have room for. So let's look at the plants. Okay, final decision. Coneflowers, which can get 3 to 4 feet tall, right here in this space. I'll probably bring them forward a little bit. Anise hyssop, which can get 3 to 5 feet tall. I'm going to have as like a filler behind these flowers, so we'll have color and then some green. And then I can have room for the bee balm back here. Comfrey can actually get to 5 feet tall. I didn't realize that, 3 to 5 feet tall. So I'm going to have that back here in this corner with the amaranth, which is really pretty bright pink. Over here, it can get 1 to 5 feet tall. So I'm going to kind of intersperse that in front of the comfrey, so that'll balance out the color. So we'll have purple here, like a reddish magenta here, the Asiatics in front. I will fill in probably some yarrow and some color here. and then the bee balm in the back for some color. And then I'll have lavender filling in here, and eventually probably fill in here with pansies or some other sort of short, colorful herb right in this space. So that's what I'm doing. There it is, you guys. I love the color of this amaranth, so pretty. And it gets these really pretty pinkish red magenta blossoms on it. And comfrey behind it will be a nice background. I'm gonna be filling in some more lavender in here, and these hyssop and the cone flowers. So it looks pretty sparse right now, but this will fill in, especially as I continue to add more herbs. I've got calendula and marigold growing inside, so I'll be adding calendula and yarrow here, the bee balm, and just whatever else I can find to fill in this wonderful medicinal herb garden space. So thanks for joining me on this journey. It is a journey, and it's only just begun. And if you want to continue to learn more about herbs and growing an herb or cottage garden, be sure to subscribe and follow along Pepper and Pine Garden Design. I will be uploading a lot more videos as the season moves on, as I continue to add to this garden, and as I work on the big cottage garden over yonder. That will be the big project for the year. So we'll see what we get done with that. And I will also be sharing the things that I'm making with these herbs, teas, tinctures, salves, and so on and so forth. But I'm excited to watch this grow. It'll be beautiful once it starts really getting full and the flowers start coming in. So as always, my name is Landon Gilfillan with Pepper and Pine Garden Design, growing gardeners in their gardens, and I'll see you in the next video.